Hello, good evening and welcome. Hope you're all getting excited for IEM Sydney because I certainly am, and that bumper making things even more exciting. But obviously we want to get stuck into all these qualifiers and start having a good night of Counter-Strike. I'm Elfish Guy, this is Pilly. We've got two matches tonight, Pilly, two big matches and one qualification spot for the Southeast Asia region. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, and it's not just, this qualifier with the Southeast Asian region. We're going to decide here tonight in the studio, maybe for at least two of the qualifiers, as well as a third qualifier that's going on 3 slots for IEM Sydney. So it's an exciting night all around. I can't wait to see how it unfolds.
Yeah, very, very big night of Counter-Strike within the Asian region, and of course for us here in ESL in Sydney. Now, obviously, let's talk a little bit about IEM Sydney before we get too far stuck into things. I think for most of us in Australia here, on the calendar year, this is kind of what you look to as the pinnacle of Counter-Strike in Australia.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the opportunity for a lot of these domestic teams to show what they've got going up against some international talent, and it's really the only sort of time we get to see some of those European and North American teams actually make a trek or a journey down under to see how they sort of fare against all those local talents.
All right, speaking of the local talents, time to find out who's actually been making their way through this qualifiers. We're going to have a look at the bracket here and see what's coming up for us later on tonight, see what's happened in the past as well. I think you've probably got really the standard teams in the Southeast Asia region in this qualifier, and as far as it looks, most things have kind of turned out the way you'd expect, with maybe a couple of exceptions, a couple of interesting names in there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the interesting thing is really the development of the sort of Thai region in terms of these Southeast Asian qualifiers. We've just seen so many different mixes of Thai talent sort of come up and make it very, very deep into these qualifier, even beating out some, interesting names. Like you had your Entity Gaming. That's actually a mix of like Indian and Serbian players. You're having some European players sort of come into the mix and see if they can qualify and stuff like that. So things are definitely changing around, and it's good to see these Thai teams really making a step up and making it very, very deep in the qualifier.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that's kind of been a storyline that we've been looking at within the Southeast Asia region in particular, probably for the last 6 months, maybe a little bit longer, maybe touching 8 to 9 months. But before that, it really felt like, okay, you had Signature Gaming and that was about it when it came to the Thai region. And then you were looking at the giants like Rekka, Boot Dreamscape, all these kinds of teams. Now things have certainly shifted, and it starts to feel like within the SDA region at the very least, it is Thai dominance and everyone else trying to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like you said before. You were looking towards, especially Indonesia, your Malaysian, and then some Singaporean teams as well in the Southeast Asian region. And you only really had your Thai team that was sort of not even a first-rate team that could take it to, your Boot Dreamscapes. If you're looking for a team that's going to qualify, you go towards your Carnals or something like that, or your Rekka, exactly like you said. But nowadays, it's definitely changed around. We're seeing these Thai teams. Although, tonight we're going to be seeing a little bit of Boot Dreamscape with a little bit different of a lineup than we might have seen historically.
Yeah, not only one Thai team either. I think that's something that we sort of glossed over a little bit. There's like, what, 3 or 4 Thai teams in this qualifier, and then probably another 1 or 2 that aren't necessarily in this qualifier, but are sort of in the mix. And the interesting thing about the Thai region as well is that they always seem to be changing their rosters around. You never really know which one's the best. You could look at a domestic tournament and one team might win, and then you can look at an international qualifier and then another will win, and then another few months later you look at another qualifier and another team will win. So I think that's kind of what we're at right now. We look back to the Asia Minor qualifiers. We had Beyond that was able to go through in a pretty good fashion. Here, it's looking like Lucid Dream might be the best Thai team in this region. Alpha Red as well, still in this next matchup, going up against Boot Dreamscape. So we'll have to see what they have to say about themselves as well. But it's always a big question mark, I think, when it comes to the Thai region as to who's the best, what kind of roster changes they've made, and how each team is going to sort of settle once everything's panned out.
Yeah, I think you've got so much depth of talent in that region. You could have sort of like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 teams that could definitely make a splash in terms of actually making it through to some of those, lower tier international tournaments and stuff like that, and start moving up the ranks and see how they go in these online qualifiers and stuff like that. It almost seems to me like, the Chinese region where they've got, some really good teams with not a world-class team, not in terms of just how high the level is, but really just about how many teams they can sort of push up into the upper echelon.
Yeah, and having a look there, as you would have seen on the schedule, our first match for today, Boot Dreamscape up against Alpha Red. The winner of that does go through to the final, basically, the qualifying match. That's going to be against Lucid Dream. Lucid Dream having the map advantage because they were the ones to come through from the upper bracket. So now let's start to focus in on this match a little bit, Pilly. Alpha Red, I think you can look at the name as Alpha Red, you can say, who is this roster?
Yeah, I mean, I've had to ask myself that exact same question before we went into casting this match, looking through some of their recent history and stuff like that. And when you go back to sort of last year, the end of last year, you actually saw them at Toyota Bangkok Masters, which was a tournament that was fairly interesting because it had the likes of, you know, your heroics and some of your tier 2, tier 3 European teams sort of journeying down there to see how they would go and maybe, you know, go to a little bit different of a location for, you know, sort of a lower tier tournament in the international circuit. So they were actually playing at that. They got some decent maps against some of the European teams and stuff like that. And as well as they've also shown up at WESG, another tournament where it's had a lot of international talent, some even tier 1 teams in that tournament. So when you talk about Alpha Red, I think it's a little bit of a difference because they've had even some more experience in recent times than a lot of these Asian teams that are classed as being better than them.
Yeah, definitely. I sort of looked at this roster and said, oh, these guys are probably the 3rd or the 4th best team in Thailand. They're not going to be a team that's necessarily going to do a whole lot in this particular qualifier, particularly when you've got teams, for example, like NASA, who I even expected maybe to make a bit of a deeper run than this. But Alpha Red, they definitely seem to be on a bit of a tear lately. They've kind of been consistently making it through the open qualifiers of whatever various tournaments they've been in, into those closed qualifiers, and like you said, into some of those international events. But they haven't really been able to make that kind of breakout performance, I don't feel like. You know, we haven't seen them have a Boot Dreamscape-esque performance. We haven't seen them have a Rekka-esque performance or a Tyloo-esque performance where they've gone overseas and they've actually been able to perform to a level that you might hope to expect from them. You know, we're not saying that, for example, Boot Dreamscape or Rekka, I guess Tyloo being an outlier, have necessarily been able to go overseas and have a huge amount of success, but at least they've been able to go over and have that opportunity, which I don't really feel like Alpha Red has kind of done yet, or at least they haven't done it consistently enough for me to think that they're necessarily a powerhouse within this region just yet. Big question marks, though, over Boot Dreamscape, who we have yet to talk about as well, because they've had a lot of roster changes, and when we go back probably 6 to 8 months ago, I would have made a very strong argument, I think, that Boot Dreamscape was the best team within the Southeast Asian region at that time. Now, though, that certainly seems to be missing the mark, I think.
Yeah, I think they really started to pick it up after, you know, you had that bit of a Tyloo split where Rekka sort of broke apart and became a lot less stronger. You'd always see, you know, Boot Dreamscape up against Rekka all the time in these Southeast Asian qualifiers, and it seemed like Rekka was just a little bit better. You always had Bentet popping off and all that kind of stuff. And nowadays, you know, with the departure of some of these Indonesian players and Indonesia sort of moving down there a little bit more as a region, you've got Boot Dreamscape who did a lot better, and you know, up in this recent iteration of, you know, your Thai teams sort of having a little bit more dominance, they've made a little bit of a change. They brought in a player from Frostfire who showed quite a bit of potential from Malaysia. They've also got a new in-game leader as well, and then some of the older names and the better talent that you're used to seeing for them as well. It's an interesting mix.
I'm pretty excited to see how the Boot Dreamscape roster does go, but before we get too far down that rabbit hole, obviously we have to talk about the maps as well, Pilly. I know you had some opinions on this, so I'd be interested to see what maps we actually do end up getting tonight. Is there anything you want to throw out before we get to see the vetoes?
Yeah, I thought it would be, you know, you sort of Nuke, Mirage, and probably an Inferno as a third. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw Alpha Red sort of taking away Train or something like that, and then I think Boot Dreamscape probably don't want to play anything like an Overpass, so we'll see how the bans and the vetoes go. It always gets weird at this stage of the bracket, though, because sometimes you'll throw a bit of a spanner in the works to get that little bit of extra mileage if you feel like you're an underdog in the series, or you want to throw a bit of a different map in there.
All right, let's see what we've got for ourselves tonight, Pilly. Obviously, a few questions still yet to be answered for us. If it does go as you expect, Nuke, Mirage, Inferno, does that necessarily favour one team or another? Are you expecting maybe Boot Dreamscape to come out of this one with the advantage, or...?
I'm not really sure. I don't know who's going to necessarily win on Nuke. Alpha Red are pretty decent on Nuke, and they've had a few, you know, decent results on that map in particular. They don't seem like they're too upset at playing it, and it's a map that historically Boot has played from time to time with their older roster, but I haven't seen them play it too much with their newer roster, so I'm not sure. I know that Frostfire played a little bit, so maybe their newer player, Devi, will be pretty comfortable with that one. So,
is there another interesting thing as well? While we've got a little bit of time here, we can talk a bit more about Boot Dreamscape. But sure. Devi coming into this roster, we sort of raised some questions about that when we were just talking about it before the broadcast. And from watching Frostfire, it did seem like Devi was the AWPer for the roster. And you come in here and you've got Splashkey, as we know, obviously the superstar AWPer for Boot Dreamscape, and how that kind of sort of works out a little bit is a bit. It seems a bit weird, right?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, it's always going to be tough sometimes. I personally played in a team where we had like we were struggling to sort of get players together, and we literally fielded a roster that had people who in their previous teams were 3 primary AWPers, and it's actually sometimes a giant struggle to get a primary AWPer to sort of go back and play in a rifling role. It can take a bit of an adjustment period. You can definitely have a little bit of a tougher time sort of slotting him into certain roles, especially on like the T side and stuff like that, when they're used to being that sort of primary AWPer who's always looking for the picks, and now, you know, you have to play a completely different style.
I'm interested in your thoughts about the Boot Dreamscape roster as a whole as well, because like when I look at this roster, okay, I've got Splashki, I've got Benkai, they're kind of known quantities for me. I have no real doubts about those two. Bulbasaur, when he comes in, sometimes he has great performances, sometimes not so great. I feel like he's a little bit inconsistent. Alex, the coach, the former coach at least for Boot Dreamscape, so we have yet to really see how he's going to go in this roster. And then Devi, is this a mix that can actually work?
I think it's a bit of a different approach from the old Boot Dreamscape lineup. In my opinion, old Boot Dreamscape lineup, you had, you know, your players like Impression. You had a lot of rock players who were pillars of consistency and were delivering time and time again. But it's not like they really had that ability to hit like a massive, huge ceiling. If they were ever going to have a decent international result or be able to consistently beat their, you know, sort of domestic rivals or whatever, it was always going to be a grindy kind of game. This time you've got 2 extremely explosive players, as well as some, you know, less sort of I would say consistent sort of players. You know, you got Bulbasaur as well as Alex coming in from a coaching role. So potentially maybe a higher ceiling there, but overall, I don't think it's going to be as consistent. It's going to be a little bit more wild.
All right, well, we'll see how they go in this match tonight. Now, you did get the Nuke pick correct.
Okay.
Inferno Vanderway there. Dust 2 actually looks like the pick out from Boot Dreamscape. So a little bit of a surprise there, maybe not to see the Mirage straight up, but Inferno gone. So it looks like it's going to be Mirage here as the remainder. 2 out of 3. I don't think that's too bad, Pilly.
Honestly, I'm pretty surprised that Alpha Red's chosen to actually ban Inferno straight at the start. I know it's a map that Boot do like to play in the past a fair bit, and they're pretty comfortable with leaving that one in there. But I've seen time and time again Alpha Red leave Inferno as the 3rd map in a series, as like, you know, just the decider. They're not too keen to ban it out, so there must be a specific reason. Maybe they're really, really uncomfortable playing up against Boot on the first map of Inferno, and they'd rather play a Dust 2. I don't know about that one. I'm not sure how much I've seen Alpha Red actually go up playing Dust 2 in a lot of these series, so potentially it should be fairly interesting. My question really is going to be, how well is this Boot Dreamscape lineup going to be able to play Nuke, which will be the pick of Alpha Red, a map that they seem fairly comfortable on and fairly are willing to pick it time and time again in these best-of-3 series.
I think that's the big question, really, isn't it? Because there hasn't been that much time for this Boot Dreamscape roster to really mesh. I know a lot of the players, I mean, with the exception really of Devi, almost all of these players have been within the Boot Dreamscape ecosystem for quite a long time.
Yep.
We've seen Bulbasaur in and out of the roster for the past 12 months, really, as a sub, as a core player, who really knows. But he's been there at the very least, and Alex has been there as a coach, so I feel like there is that synergy in a sense for them, but it's still a question mark for me, really, how good this Boot Dreamscape roster can be. Can it reach the same level of the previous Boot Dreamscape roster as well, who I, to be honest, held in a fairly high regard most of the time? There was some inconsistency issues towards the end of 2018, but when they were doing well, before Benkai kind of had that departure from the roster, obviously had to go and do military service, I think that Boot Dreamscape really were almost pushing the issue as outside of Tyloo as being one of the best teams within the Asian region. When we see them going up against MVP, they had good performances. When we saw them going up against the rest of the domestic teams in Southeast Asia, they also always had good performances, but it sort of all just seemed to fall apart, which I thought was really unfortunate because I really enjoyed watching this Boot Dreamscape roster. Hopefully, though, they're going to be able to make things work, and we'll see how they do go tonight. I think a tough opponent for them in Alpha Red, but it's definitely not an unbeatable opponent. And then obviously looking forward to Lucid Dream. I think that is definitely a different ballpark for both of these 2 teams. But moving on to Nuke, our first map. And for Boot Dreamscape and Alpha Red, placing at IEM Sydney on the line here. This is a knockout game. So for both of them, putting their best foot forward here on Nuke is going to be, obviously, the ideal start.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the most important games of either of these teams' careers, especially with Boot's new lineup. It's sort of the first big test of how well are they actually going to be able to go. Can they make it through this Southeast Asian qualifier and get themselves an opportunity internationally? They're going to be starting off on the CT side, so...
Not to mention, Boot also was the team last year that actually did come to IEM Sydney. So they want to be able to do that twice on the trot. Don't let this Thai dominance get too far ahead of them. Otherwise, they start to lose their grip slowly on the Southeast Asia region. Benkai going for a push here. He spots the bomb. And there's already a good start as Olivia goes down, and Boot Dreamscape look to push forward and look to take control of Radio Room, which they most certainly do. Bulbasaur, another one, and Alpha Red already lost 2 players.
They definitely have. They've also lost the bomb in the Radio Room there, and they're fairly spread out around the map. Looks like they were kind of spotting for pushes, but one of their players, Olivia, they're caught out in Radio Room, not looking in the correct direction, is pretty much going to be what seems like the end of this round with 3 CT players posted up. Rips the head off of Fox there from Bulbasaur. There's no way they're getting the hands on this bomb without losing more players, I would imagine. Have to be something spectacular coming out from these Ts. 1 CT coming through Hut as well for a bit of a side swipe.
I mean, realistically, this is the ideal start for Boot Dreamscape. If there was any questions about, okay, how's this roster going to go? Are they going to be comfortable coming into Nuke? Best way to maybe settle some of the nerves and answer some of the questions is obviously to pick up the pistol round in a fairly convincing fashion as well.
Sort of just strolled into lobby there and just, you know, ripped some heads off of Ts that didn't really look like they were ready for what was happening.
I'm really keen to see Bankai back in action as well. I was always a big fan of his. Bulbasaur starting to push on forward here, or rather Bulbasaur does go down, I should say. It's KNTZ that's left for Alpha Red. Not going to be able to do too much, as is to be expected. Myroll's the only one that actually finds a pick there for Alpha Red. So, like I said, great start for Boot Dreamscape. Now the question becomes how they're going to go throughout the rest of this map in particular. Once Alpha Red really starts to get going, once the money is good for Alpha Red, because sure, winning a pistol is great. It's a great start, fantastic for Boot, but it really doesn't answer all the questions that we need.
Definitely not. Look at this force buyout from the Ts. They've gone pistols and armor. What's the buyout from Boot? They actually have a bunch of SMGs and a Mag 7. Like, this could potentially be an opportunity for the Ts to actually catch the CTs unaware, but Bankai, he's going to push into the heart with the Mag 7 and get the first pick again. Really feels like Boot Dreamscape. They don't want to let Alpha Red execute whatever game plan they have. They're playing so disruptive, constantly just walking at the opponent, pushing them before anything can really happen.
Maybe that's the right kind of an idea here as well for Boot, because you know that this roster has a lot of firepower, has the potential to have a lot of firepower. Again, talking about fire, there's going to be a few Molotovs thrown onto the A bomb site. So far, Alpha Red not being able to execute off the back of it, and Bankai will pick himself up another one. Lots of money going into his back pocket. Alpha Red, though, taking the opportunity to make their way into the ramp room. They've been cut off, though, by Bulbasaur, and this fire is really going to keep them quite isolated. Bulbasaur will go down, so too will Splashki. Another 2 kills for Myrolls, but as of yet, no one else from Alpha Red has been able to get a kill on the board. Devi coming in looking for the cleanup. Only a couple of Alpha Red players left here, and realistically it seems unlikely that they should be able to make much of an impact, particularly because KNTZ doesn't have any head armor there either, and also not too much HP to play with. But for Alpha Red, it seems like a solid attempt, right? They're still kind of making inroads happen. And in towards that B bomb site, Myrolls may yet get a bomb plan here.
Yeah, the overall strategy didn't work at all, but it feels like Boot, they were just very over-aggressive trying to close out that anti-eco. This time, Alpha Red, especially without that bomb plant, they're probably going to have to save, I would imagine. Last round, they really tried to go for the pistol force-up and get a bunch of utility. It really looked like they were going for an uppers execute, a really, really set play coming out from the Ts, but once Bankai got into the hut and got that first pick and made it a 4-on-5, you know, you lose a lot of punching power on the T side. You know, once that extra entry player goes down, it's extremely hard to trade out as efficiently. Instead of talking about, you know, a 1-for-1 where you got a 4-on-4 on the bomb site and they're retaking, or even a 2-for-1, especially with the pistols, it can be quite hard to even up the numbers. You've already lost a player, already man down. It's going to be a lot harder.
Alex, having picked up the scope already, does decide not to use it. At that point, you might question, why don't you just pick up an M4? But regardless, he's doing a decent amount of damage as he does manage to get rid of STK. 4v3, Alpha Red, they're putting some work in here, but I don't think it's going to be enough to really trouble Boot all that much. Devi pushing on forward off the back of the flashbang will eliminate another one. Realistically speaking, KNTZ with only the Glock not going to be doing too much there. It looks like the SG will be picked up, and that's okay, so very nicely done. And now the question becomes, what kind of a buy do we see coming out from the rest of Boot here? Is the AWP going to go straight away onto Splashki? And that is the answer of yes. Really good stuff, I think, for Boot Dreamscape. Interesting to note that Splashki has been one of the better performers in this particular qualifier for Boot Dreamscape. I mean, he has, I think, in general been one of the better performers for Boot Dreamscape, but to see him with an AWP in his hands early, a lot of confidence shown there. No more Mag 7 though, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, so it looks like Alpha Red, they're sort of waiting for any kind of utility on the outside bomb side. 2 of them have their smokes lined up. It's going to be the wall of smokes on the outside area with 2 people, or 3 people rather, heading over towards that outside yard. Splashki's actually in lower. He's going to be able to get a pick, but he gets instantly traded out. A lot of players towards this outside area heading down secret for Alpha Red. Pretty good set play coming out from them. KNTZ is actually not lurking towards that lobby radio area and trying to go for the backstab down ramp. This time he's trying to control the rotations of anyone trying to push through Secret. There you go, Olivia down in lower with the AWP. Finds himself a pick as well, so extremely good situation for Alpha Red. The problem with Boot is they can't really be too sure where to position some of their plays. You know, you see one towards Heaven there, one like ramp room, one in lower with Devi. They're all playing sort of one and done positions where they're trying not to be too overexposed to some of these Ts, so...
Yeah, it's a pretty critical round as well for Boot. They've had the last couple of anti-ecos that they've actually lost a few players in, so if they don't win here, their money's going to be absolutely cooked. Olivia will go down. Nicely done from Devi as he can situate himself again back onto that B bomb site in a different location, make life a little more difficult for Alpha Red. And now with only 30 seconds left in that 3v3 situation, this is where Boot maybe starts to have an opportunity, have a chance. It's still a difficult one, but Devi doing a fantastic job on this B bomb site will eventually get traded down, but at the very least, he's ensured it's going to be a 2v2 for the retake, which is still difficult for Boot, but definitely winnable. Now maybe not so much, as Benkai, the player with the actual rifle, does go down. Bulbasaur trying to clutch it out in the 1v1, doesn't have any idea where Fox is sitting. I don't think that this is an angle that he's liable to check, certainly not straight away, as Fox will clean things up. Headshot out from him. A very expensive round for Boot Dreamscape, and obviously a loss on top of that as well.
Beautiful round from Alpha Red. They look like they're very organised. I mean, even down to that second round where Benkai came into Hut and got a pick very, very early, they were trying to go for a bit of a set play with the pistol force play. That round in particular, pretty much textbook play on terms of how to throw those outside smokes and take control of Secret and boil the round down from there. They did a fantastic job just going together, trying to get those trades out. It got a little bit closer than you might have expected, but in the 2-on-2, they were able to make it work. Now Boot, they're going to have to take a bit of a save. Alpha Red playing pretty slow here, giving up a lot of lobby control. Should Boot go for that kind of approach. Wall of smokes across outside, and they will start to make their way down to Secret once again.
Devi getting mighty close with all of these shots. In fact, doing quite a number onto Olivia, STK, and Fox. I think Alex might have been throwing a bit of damage in there. I didn't quite catch how much ammo he had in the CZ. Oh no, he hasn't actually fired it. But regardless, Alpha Red copying a few on the cross, which does soften them up a little bit if there was ever an opportunity for Boot to win this round. It's probably off the back of a few lower HP targets. Splashky going to be waiting for this cross, but his push may be well ill-advised unless he gets a nice angle, which he doesn't quite. In fact, doesn't even manage to land a shot. Alex is going to be forced to peek for info now, and Myrolls will easily cover him off. Doesn't seem like Boot Dreamscape have much of a chance now. Two players still on the bomb site. Bulbasaur having a deagle. Maybe make things interesting. There's a Zeus kill in the meanwhile as well from Benkai. Always fun to see. The rotation from Bulbasaur to Megaton doesn't end up making too much happen. Nice round out from Alpha Red, looking really solid so far on the T side.
Let's see if Boot are actually going to buy up here. Obviously, Benkai doesn't have the best of money, but if you put him in the right position with an SMG or a shotgun, he should do perfectly fine, especially last time he was pretty willing to push that Hut with a Mag 7. This time he's got the XM, so pretty decent buy across the board for Boot. As for Alpha Red, starting to build up quite a bit of money for themselves, you know, 2 to 5k across the board on most of their plays, except for Fox. Really loving watching this Alpha Red sort of slow approach where they just do basic things. They're taking the map control. They're going together and trying to trade out as best they can. It's really paying off for them at the moment. See if it continues to do so. Oh my god, the nade stack on top of Hut destroys Devi. That is something that you would never see in an Asian CS game. I don't think I ever have seen something like that.
Maybe this is the reason that the region of Thai CS is starting to really turn some heads.
Splashky's with the glass cannon here in Secret. Could definitely bring the advantage back, but he's actually going to fall off the angle, feeling a little intimidated. Perhaps.
I don't think that there's a... You can't really blame him for feeling intimidated. When you see that much utility headed in your direction, he knows that he's already been picked there once as well, and if he does go down now, that's basically the round over, not to mention the AWP lost as well for Boot. Very important, and actually a very nice frag out from him as well, as he can set himself here again and play another angle. The flash goes just a little bit too deep, and Splashky is starting to do Splashky things here, being able to have that impact really, I would say early in the round, even though we're quite late into the round. Super important for Boot to find those 2 frags, and now it makes an entirely winnable round for them as Alpha Red rotate back up to the A side. Benkai with the XM can't get too much more done. Thought there was another player actually on the A bomb site, but turns out there wasn't. Bulbasaur should get a free one coming in from Heaven here, and he does. Splashkey in the meanwhile chiming in with another as well. And it's Olivia into the 1v2, but Splashkey, or rather Alex, so low, tagged up through the wall. Indeed, it's going to be another round on the board for Boot Dreamscape. But if it weren't for Splashkey finding 3 with the Orb there, I think that really could have come undone quite quickly.
I feel like Alpha Red were a little bit too hesitant there. Like, I understand they're taking quite a slow approach. You know, you got to throw all the flash. At some point, you got to, like, just hold your W movement, your ASD, your movement keys into the AWP and try to trade out that frag. You can't just let him get away with just repositioning on every angle and picking, you know, the Ts as they slowly make their way down secret.
Not against someone like Slashy as well.
Yeah, definitely. You can't give him too many opportunities because that's a win condition for Boot to be able to just run away with this. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about this Alpha Red roster other than what I've read from statistics and previous results in recent history, but I don't imagine that they have someone who can be as talented with Splashkey as the AWP and take over the game as much. I would say that Boot probably has 2 better AWPers than Alpha Red does.
Well, you would potentially be surprised. I mean, Alpha Red, yes, again, we don't know a huge deal about them, but with the meteoric rise of Thai CS, I think that there is an argument to be made that there are probably some hidden gems in there. So we will see. We will see, obviously, throughout the rest of this series. But you're right, Splashkey definitely is a very scary prospect to be going up against. And if not Splashkey, then potentially Devi. Maybe even both at one time. Perhaps not on Nuke, but on a couple of the next maps, we may well see the double AWP coming out here.
Alpha Red, bit of a different approach this time. They throw the same outside smokes, but they don't actually make their way down secret to go for any kind of control. You can see Olivia is just holding on, waiting to see if anyone's going to get aggressive up through that secret area. And it really feels like, in general, Alpha Red, they've gone for some very light sort of control, and they're waiting for any aggression or any overextensions from Boot. But unfortunately, they're going to be the ones overextending. Splashy is going to pick one of those outside players from Heaven, which really puts the onus on Alpha Red to make a bit of a move in this round. And the clock's really ticking down. They've lost a fair amount of map control. They don't have many options at this point. They're going to try and split up and through Annex, but Devi's all over it.
Yeah, and look at what Splashkey is doing in the meanwhile. He's really cleared out radio. Boot know exactly where Alpha Red is going to be, and Splashy finds himself behind KNTZ. So Olivia, who's watching the stairs into secret, unfortunately not going to be having much of an impact on this round with 15 seconds left. May well get Bulbasaur here, who's running around with the elephant feet, but realistically speaking, you're not going to be seeing much happen here for Alpha Red. And that's a nice response very quickly from Boot Dreamscape. You know, we were starting to ask our questions. We were saying Alpha Red's looking really good on this T side, but now that Splashkey's warmed up, I think that was a real turning point as well. Splashkey warming up, but the rest of Boot now seem to have kind of lifted a little bit as well, and all of a sudden we're at 5-2 for the CT side.
Yeah, and Alpha Red, it seems like they've got all the strats. They've got a lot of preparation. You know, they seem very familiar with this T side of Nuke, but it seems like they're very hesitant on when to go in and sort of trade out. The pace has been very slow and crawling, and they sort of, you know, you expect with a style like that where they're just taking their time and they're all sort of getting into the area, there's going to be a point where it's like they explode and they actually go and push something very quickly after that, but they don't. They just sort of take their time. This time it's going to be outside smokes into an upper execute. That's going to be a molly for the top of Heart, and I would imagine a flash or two through the skylight as they explode out door and Heart. Smoke onto Annex.
Well, Benkai trying to do some work with the XM. Eventually does clean one up. Won't get the reload off, but the damage is already done. Alpha Red, they've lost 2 players. Boot Dreamscape still have 3, but now traded back very quickly. Olivia going absolutely nuts, and Splashy cannot get the trade. Alex will push through the smoke. Almost perfect timing, but for the fact that there was another Alpha Red player there. And you really got to put that, I think, on the 2 players from Rafters there for Boot. They couldn't, or they shouldn't have been able to go down in that situation, or in that fashion, if Boot were going to win the round.
And that's just one of those situations where the verticality of the map is not something that you're always accounting for. Like, these are kills that are very easy for Olivia and KNTZ to be able to convert, whereas Boot, it's very hard to sort of convert some of those trades when you're coming out Heaven like that. I would have really liked to see them take their time a little bit more on that retake once they put themselves in an advantageous position. It's the Ts who have to plant the bomb. As the CTs, once you got that advantage, you know, you can sort of take your time.
Particularly because they had the bomb dropped in Annex as well.
Yep, 100%.
Benkai's in an interesting spot here, though. Myrolls has obviously got no idea that he's behind him. The rest of Alpha Red still hanging around toward lobby, toward radio room, maybe having a peek into ramp room now. but if Myrolls makes so much noise here, Bankai should be able to get a free kill, and will. Splash King in the meanwhile chiming in as Alpha Red make their way into ramp room. So straight away, looks like a fantastic response here from Boot Dreamscape. Alpha Red have managed to at least get themselves down toward the B-bomb site, but Bulbasaur waiting for them and will clean up one, maybe even two here with the CZ. Obviously not the third for him there as KNTZ will trade it out. That's good damage done by Boot Dreamscape, and now it becomes less of a question for KNTZ of can I win the round and more of a question of how much damage can I do to this CT economy, because 3v1 still a difficult prospect. But the money is so low for Boot Dreamscape that every kill that he's able to get, if he's able to get more, would be fantastic.
So this entire Alpha Red T side really is predicated off the fact that they throw those outside smokes and either they go and take control of Secret, or they're going to mix up how they're sort of approaching things, whether they want to go through ramp room after throwing the smokes on the outside, whether they want to go quickly into an uppers execute off the back of throwing those outside smokes. They're trying to give Boot the same look every time and then go for a different sort of a strategy. But the problem with that is, you know, you can have your overall team approach, you can have your strategy that you're mixing up, but when one Boot player starts to recognize his tendencies and thinks it's a good round to sort of mix in a push like we saw Bankai do, your whole strategy unravels. The amount of information that he's able to get just slipping through those outside smokes, it's not only about him catching one player off guard in the back, it's about what he doesn't see. He doesn't see 3 to 4 Ts making their way down Secret. He knows that everyone else is in the other parts of the map, which allows his teammates to be in the correct position. Nuke CT side, it's 100% about rotations, and there's no way you would see, you know, this many CTs on the lower bomb site in position ready to deal with what Alpha Red was doing, you know, if Bankai hadn't got that info in the first place.
There's a tactical pause out there for Alpha Red, so we'll see what they've discussed. We've got some pistols coming out here. Bankai again feeling pretty confident, just peek straight into Myrolls. Nice couple of shots into his head, and that'll be another one for Boot Dreamscape that they don't have to worry about. 4v5 now.
Got to be so annoying to play up against this style. You know, you're trying to run your T side, you're trying to make sure you're creating your own duels, your own engagements, and Boot are just getting under your skin. They're pushing every time you want to go for an important round. They're walking through the smokes on outside. You know, Benkai's rolling into hut with his Mag 7 and ripping your head off. Splashy's running around everywhere with the AWP and picking you off. And if you ever get into that upper bomb site, by the way, Davai's having one hell of a game with the rifles.
Yeah, and that was a real question mark that we had as well about this Boot roster. How would it go with the two AWPers? How would Device slot into this rifle role? Seems to be going okay for the moment. Bulbasaur, it's a pretty long angle to be holding with the MP9, so we'll see what he's able to do. Just gets the information and falls off. I think that's probably a wise decision here. You know, you don't want to be peeking back into that Deagle. And for Boot, you can just play that numbers game. As we do see now, Alex coming across. He's got the AUG. Cleans up KNTZ. Now it's the double peek, and Bulbasaur actually gets both of them, it turns out. Thought Alex got the first. Regardless, he'll get the third, and that's good enough for Boot Dreamscape as Bankai finishes the final one off. Another good round out for Boot, though, admittedly, against Pistols. And I think now is where we get to see the fruits of that tactical pause. What has Alpha Red discussed, and what kind of adaptations are they going to make coming into this round?
Yeah, I think they really need to stop being so hesitant. Hesitation has been their biggest, worst enemy thus far in this game. Also, it's getting a bit one-dimensional, throwing out those outside smokes time and time again and just sort of giving Boot the same thing to look at. They're starting to very, very quickly adapt. So again, they're going to go for the outside smokes. I want to see what the reaction is this time from Alpha Red. I'd like to see something a little bit more simplistic, maybe just contacting ramp with 2 to 3 players. But again, this time it's going to seem like we're going to see a lot of players down Secret, something that worked for them previously.
Still 2 SMGs out here for Boot Dreamscape as well.
Yeah, definitely is. And not to mention that, you know, Alex is here in the warehouse listening for the footsteps, but as for the rest of Boot Dreamscape, there's a lot of players. There's one in ramp, and the rest of them are all on the upper bomb site. No one's actually rotated down towards lower just yet. So if these Alpha Red players are able to get themselves in a good position, it could be the end of the round for Boot. Not to mention the fact that Alex, I don't even know he's still alive,
He's
mate.
like Neo, just dodging bullets everywhere. I have no idea how he's managed to get out of that one alive, but nonetheless he has. Grenades go through, won't do too much damage to him. Now where does this leave Boot, though?
in a terrible position because Alpha Red's already down to that lower bomb site. If they're able to actually cross with the bomb and get through there, which they're having a bit of trouble getting the rest of their players down towards lower at this point, they pretty much won the round because they have full vent control. They have a lot of control of decon and windows, but if they can't get across, it's not really going to matter at this point.
I mean, you can't really get across too easily when they've run out of smokes.
Oh, no.
And Splashkey is just sitting the line. There's 2 already down to his AWP. Finally, they get another one across, but I think the damage might have already been done here. Still, bomb plant is very likely for Alpha Red on the B side. So maybe they can defend against these perhaps weakened Boot Dreamscape players. KNTC will get Benkai. Splashkey again looking for another frag, waiting for the player to peek out from behind the silo, and will get the kill. Brings it back into a 2v1, of course, for Foxes. Devi and Bobasaur, and we mentioned already Devi, very confident from Bobasaur. Not sure what's going on there. It's given the opportunity to Foxes.
That's a hugely thrown round from Boot. You just have to say it right there. They're in a 5-on-3 situation. They're fully aware it's the lower bomb site, and they're giving these 1v1 duels to Alpha Red freely. Like, it's just a lack of fundamental sort of spacing between their players coming in on the retake. They're rushing things way too much. They're going to confidently take those duels with these Ts who are set up in some pretty good positions, and you just can't be giving them those opportunities. Take your time, come in together, and make sure that you're actually going to secure that round that you've worked so hard on.
It really did seem like a grind that Boot Dreamscape were going to be rewarded for. And then it all sort of falls apart in the end there. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. That's the kind of inconsistencies that you see out of Boot at times. Benkai's on an interesting angle here with the XM. Gets the molly down. The gun won't come out in time, though. He only gets one opportunity and can't take advantage of it, which puts Devi in an awful position. And now the A bomb site just falls apart.
Look at those flash assists as well. Fantastic flashes being thrown out through the squeaky door as well as through the skylight for Alpha Red. They've been so on top of their utility, setting up great opportunities for these Ts to get in fantastic positions, whether it's taking the map control with the smokes on outside down secret, or whether it's taking these duels with the flashes coming in thick and fast. Going to get them a 5th round on the board and potentially get them a lot of T rounds further into this half.
You look at the money right now that Boot Dreamscape is working with, and they've, lost 2 rounds in a row, so their money is going to be pretty bad. Bobasaur and Splashkey ideally able to save these 2 guns through, which does bolster things, but I think given how close a lot of these rounds have been, and how tentative Alpha Red have been on their T side up against the rifles, now that they're most likely aware that there's not that much of a defense, I think this is where we really see Alpha Red start to come out of their shell.
They absolutely have to. I mean, those first couple of rounds that they were losing, and that last round they were able to claw away, which they really shouldn't have been given by Boot Dreamscape. It's just a question of them hesitating too much despite being in a good position, or maybe not being 100% aware of how to convert the round. Thus far, Alpha Red have been fantastic at getting themselves in good positions. Oh, but Splashkey, though, speaking of good positions, he's already read the play before it even comes out. He's got his crosshair trained on that door before Olivia even thinks about opening it and trying to get a
secondary AWP. It's a secondary AWP now for Devi, who we've already sort of spoken about. Again, Splashkey, such a close range angle, and it's going to be KNTC that goes down, but a couple of quick trades back do come across for Alpha Red.
And again, like, what are these players doing under silo on outside for the CT side? Like, Splashy's going in there, he's winning you the game.
Yeah.
Like, all you need to do is just sit somewhere where you're not going to get shot and just play the 5-on-3 fundamentally, where you're able to trade out and crossfire the bomb sites. The Ts have to come to the site. What is the purpose of going under silo at this point? Like,
well, questions to be answered, and perhaps some more for Splashkey as well, of course, as he's already started the round off well, but it's not the finish, right? And that's what Boot Dreamscape need. They've let this sort of slip a little bit. Another great shot. Splashkey, again, 3 out of this round, and it's exactly the kind of play that you need to be able to win the round. Devi, with the AWP that Splashkey gave him, has managed to have an impact as well, and now for sure, it looks like it should be Boot Dreamscape to finish this one off, but all it takes, Bobasaur just peeking out from upper there and finishing things off. Look, I think Boot Dreamscape really making it difficult for themselves.
Yep, 100%.
But they're getting the job done slowly. This is a replay, of course. Nice couple of shots out from Splashkey.
There's nothing that gets Jordan Mays more excited than Splashkey running around shooting people with the AWP.
That's exactly right.
It's a classic.
I think Splashkey is a very exciting AWPer, you know? Like, he'll take those aggressive angles and try and make it work. Nice trade back from Bobasaur onto KNTZ. That's important.
should still be the T's at an advantage at this point, though. Olivia is really looking for this pick out of Hut. If he's able to get it, this could open up the upper bomb site so much. Not quite able to convert that one, unfortunately. Alpha Red very much stacked up in lobby at this point, with one player over on the silo there. He's just dropped on Annex. I wonder if the CT's heard that. Could potentially make a huge amount of impact off the top of the Annex area. Alpha Red just waiting for this push into lobby. At the moment, Splashkey's nowhere near. If they're able to actually get clean entries onto this upper bomb side on Bobo and Benkai, or at least trade them out, then it could be pretty hard for these CTs to come in from heaven on the retake.
Yeah, particularly with the double AWP setup with
100%.
Divide and Splashkey.
Yep.
So important for Benkai to be able to do something from Squeaky Door here, and he does get a big spray down, a lot of damage, but damage is not good enough. Not against Alpha Red, particularly when it's the two AWPs, when really you would have much preferred to see two players go down. Splashkey uncharacteristically finally missing a shot. That should be the nail in the coffin. Devi actually getting one with the CZ. What's going on here?
There it was. Last round and a half coming out, and this is some pretty scuffed looking money, if I do say so myself, Jordan.
It's alright, Splashkey has an AWP, so round's still winnable.
True, still a gun round. Bobo could even drop a secondary over towards Devi if he wants to, which I would be a fan of. Other two are going to have to settle for pistols. As for Alpha Red, pretty good gun round. And I would have to say, pretty good T side. Already happy with 6 rounds. As long as they don't run into Splashkey at all, then they should be okay to come away with a 8-7 here, but don't want to be calling it too early. Again, it's the outside smokes. I'm interested to see how they're going to start to use them. It's a double AWP on the T side, actually, which is...
That's weird, but also Alex is sitting under Silo, where there's a lot of Alpha Red players around him, so...
No, he's chilling in Annex.
Annex. I thought he was in Silo. My mistake. But still, hey, there's Splashkey again. So, like I said, if Splashkey's got an AWP, I always feel like the round is still winnable.
See, I 100% agree. The problem being is that, you know, you're looking at 6 rounds for Alpha Red, potentially a 7th, but even 6 rounds you'd be happy with. How much impact is Splashkey going to be able to have on the T side? Like, this is his half to shine. What's your plan for the next half of the map, lads?
And if they're not converting these rounds, that Splashkey is really literally serving to them on a silver platter.
Yep.
Splashkey getting a little bit over-eager there.
Which is what I would say. I don't think this is going to be a round for Boot the whole time, even though, you know, you saw kills going the favour of Boot time and time again. It's positions that the Ts are getting themselves in are giving them so much of a chance to win. That's a really good trade for the CTs out. The bomb's not even down yet.
And an AWP and an AK now into the hands of Boot Dreamscape. So still technically a winnable round, though for Alex and Devi, I think it's a very tough one.
An excellent crossfire from the Ts, though. These are some of the harder sort of positions to dig the Ts out of at this point in the round.
Not much utility for Boot Dreamscape either. A smoke there, I suppose, if they wanted to go for a defuse in the smoke, but no defuse kit. So it's a full 10-second defuse and should be easily able to clean up for Alpha Red. Alex will get the trade back, but as you said, the crossfire is too strong for Alpha Red. 8-7 at the end of the half. I feel as though Boot Dreamscape have done themselves a little bit of a disservice with that half. Could have gotten a bit more out of it, but nonetheless, Alpha Red will be happy.
That clutch in particular on the lower bomb site where, you know, they had a 5-on-3 and I think it was KNTZ to finish it off with the 2 headshots. That should have been the round that got them 10, 11, 12 rounds in the half and really shut it down. I would have thought it might be 11-4 or something like that if they would have converted it. Instead, Alpha Red, you know, bringing it up to 7 rounds on the T side. I think they're going to be able to run away with this one with a decent CT side. And what I will say about Alpha Red is that, you know, individually and mechanically speaking, they don't seem that highly skilled, but their fundamentals and their team play is on point. Like, the way they're playing off of each other, the decisions that they're making as a team, like in terms of the overall strategy rather than the individual decision making, is pretty damn good. Like, if you put some more skilled players in the seats and the same positions as some of these players, you would have a really, really good team. Maybe one of the best teams in Asia, the way that they're playing. I'm really enjoying watching them play. But
I think you can make an argument even without those players, that they are one of the best teams,
yeah,
right?
They're doing really good.
Look, we talk about them and they're sort of one of the better teams in Thailand, I suppose. It's kind of always hard to say exactly how it looks.
Who knows, mate? It changes depending on whether it's Wednesday or Thursday.
Exactly. Well, it turns out today is Sunday, so maybe maybe Sunday is Alpha Red's day. The thing that I like about this Alpha Red roster is I think this is kind of the deepest run that they've ever had into one of these quote-unquote big qualifiers, right? Yep. When we're talking about IEM qualifiers or ESL Pro League qualifiers, that kind of thing. They've always sort of gotten knocked out in sort of 5th or 6th position, something like that, but now they're at the very least in a 3rd place finish, which obviously if they get 3rd, that's you know, still not going to get them to IEM Sydney, but they are making inroads, and that's good to see.
Yeah, and it's not just that. Like, is this game more pressure than a WESG game? Is this game more pressure than a, you know, smaller international tournament? I don't know about that. I think they're more than conditioned to be able to, you know, play it at this level. This time, Boot's actually been allowed to sort of make their way down into Secret. Fox is under a lot of pressure. Oh my god, what is that?
He just beams all 4 of them! And Alex is the last one alive for Boot Dreamscape. SDK eliminates him.
I said he was under a lot of pressure. He had that one under control.
No
he was leaned back in his seat. He was ready. He goes forward. He doesn't run away.
That's the
you
point.
hear that many T footsteps. What's your reaction, Jordan? Is it to walk forward and shoot them all in the head?
Maybe.
He knew what he was doing.
Well, that's the equalization round. Brings it to 8-8. Never mind, mate. Boot Dreamscape going to blow open the squeaky door. You would think maybe that would lead them to go for event drop, but it didn't seem like that was the choice anyway. Not that it really matters, because they have been utterly decimated here.
He wants in. No, he won't have it, Splashy. He really wanted to take out my rolls there. 5 alive on the anti-eco. That's a thing of beauty. I think Alpha Red might be my dream team in terms of just, you know, doing the right things.
What about
not
Lucid
throwing.
Dream? Surely they're your dream team.
Negative.
Negative?
Well, we'll see. We'll see when we get into the later part of the night, I suppose.
And this is something that Boot Dreamscape now haven't been able to do as well as Alpha Red, right? When we looked at those anti-ecos from Boot Dreamscape on the CT side, Alpha Red were doing a lot of damage. We're keeping the economy low. This time, Alpha Red, obviously, like you said, 5 players alive in that anti-eco. Their money's not as bad, but a quick buy-up from Boot Dreamscape and already an opening frag for them in the round.
Surely Splashkey hasn't just spammed in through the door, has he, Jordan? Like, please tell me that hasn't happened.
Wouldn't be surprised if it was.
Oh, they're ready for him. They're aware. How could they have known? To a 4-on-3 now. Alpha Red, they're in a pretty difficult position. Because as the CTs, when you're in a disadvantageous position on a map like Nuke, where the rotations are so important. See, they're doing the same thing as Boot. They're playing all split up in one-and-done sort of positions. It's not going to get you anything done, lads. Like, you need to gamble stack something. You need to push for info. You need to do something. You can't just sit and hope for the best. Got the molly to be able to drop. He's actually holding on to it. What a madman.
And he might actually take the challenge here as well. There was an opportunity. There was a chance for him. Half a second there if he would have sprayed right through. Maybe he picks up one. But in the end, it does cost him his life. So I guess that's the risk versus reward that you maybe need to take in a 3v4 if you want to bring the round back. Still, Alpha Red are relying on these remaining 2 players. Device should catch the side of STK, and he will as the bomb goes down. It's onto K and TZ now to try and make this retake work. I think any thoughts of saving are probably illogical. Getting out of a position like this is not going to be easy at all. Very long spray now, but Splashy gets the job done in the end. Boot Dreamscape fight back.
Look, I'm happy that Boot were able to pick up that round, but that's not a real T-side round in my opinion. Like, you know, you open it up with Splashkey just getting such a freebie through the door like that. That's going to be a little bit of an anomaly in terms of how good is this game actually going to get in terms of the next half. Like, when you're getting handed freebies like that, it becomes a lot easier to navigate your way through a T-side. Although I really felt like Alpha Red could have done a little bit better in terms of their rotations there. There's a Molotov to top of heart, followed up by a flash, but they're not really going to do anything with that right at the start here. I might have actually been for Splashkey to get down vent. Sometimes you'll have a molly thrown right in front of the squeaky door and then you'll extinguish it for a smoke to make sure the smoke's placed correctly. Not sure which one of the 2 that was. I think it might have been the latter, to be honest. And Splashkey now in a pretty good position, but he's going to get caught out.
Oh, did you see that? Yeah, he just spins around like 360 and then finally calibrates his aim.
He seemed a bit surprised.
Yeah. Do you ever get that, like when you're playing a game and something surprises you and you like jerk your mouse? Happens to me a lot.
I do that, but I play on a really low sense in every game, so it's literally like, it doesn't really, my aim doesn't really go anywhere.
I see.
So I suppose for a high sense player, you do a little bit of a spin.
A 360.
Yeah. A sick one? Maybe. It's all down onto my rolls now. I think he's just tucked himself in the little squeaky door corner there.
He has.
Alex cops a dink, but that's going to be it. And now, I mean, Alpha Red, You took a save to be able to get slightly better money than you had in the last round. You see, look at all these pistols purchased.
I want to know what Splashky's sense is, because I think he like almost did probably 280 degrees there.
Yeah. As I was saying, though, like, in the last round, they bought so many CZs and armor, and they did no economic damage to boot. Like, look how much money these lads have. And now, with all that money that they spent on CZ and armor, they haven't been able to get any incendiaries or good utilities to be able to go forward into this round. Like, what was really the point at the end of the day of taking an eco there? I mean, I guess you're building up the loss bonus or whatever, but not really a great investment when you're not doing any damage to the T economy, first of all. And second of all, now you lack a whole lot of fundamental utility after just taking an eco.
Are those cracks starting to show maybe for Alpha Red now on the CT side?
Potentially, potentially. We haven't seen too much of it yet. I mean, that first gun round, I said that didn't count. It doesn't count when Splashky's too good, okay? Every round that Splashky's too good, just write that one off. Doesn't count. So,
like, literally every round the Boot Dreams have got.
Maybe. So, very slow approach from Boot. No smokes on this outside area, just sort of edging their way out to T red. Splashky trying to open things up through door as he did in the previous round. And now here's the smoke on towards the annex area as they start to move their way across the yard. Fast smoke over on that T red, as well as a close smoke. They're going to walk their way across the secret, just a slow sort of approach. No crazy jump throw smokes across the map. They're just going to underarm them and see how it goes. And so far, it goes.
Yep.
There's no CTs down toward this lower bomb site with 30 seconds to go. I'm starting to get very worried, especially if Splashky's able to get himself a pick on towards upper. That's going to cause a bit of an over-rotation towards upper from Alpha Red. And then Boot, they've already got control of all of Vent. They've got Decon. They've got Windows. How do you retake this as a CTs?
Well, you get Splashky. That's one piece of the puzzle. 4v5 is an advantage. Divide goes down as well, so maybe they don't even have to retake. They can't quite deny the bomb plan. It's a 4v3. Nice work being done, though, by Benkai. STK trading back onto Alex. Bobasaur almost shoots his teammate. Luckily, he misses. But for Alpha Red, still a doable situation. Benkai is going absolutely nuts, though, with the AUG. That is a scary prospect, but isn't aware, of course, of another player wrapping around the side. And it's on to Bobasaur. See how long he can bide his time. Gets the player on the defuse, and it's not quite going to be enough. Olivia will clutch it out in the 1v1. If Benkai would have just, I think, trusted himself and watched that same angle, he might have got the job done.
And this is a situation where with the old money, Jordan, like Alpha Red, you'd be screwed. Like, you had one alive after winning that round, and Boot's still got like 7 to 9k across the board. They're still doing totally fine for money. But now you're going to see a situation where if Alpha Red loses this round, they're still going to just take a singular eco, but they won't have their money completely wrecked for the rest of the half and have to just be in this really weird position. So it's going to be one of those games that sort of benefits from the changes.
Oops, Splashky.
Oh, he gets picked off. They're starting to adapt. Love to see it.
Smoke was a bit short too.
Yeah, definitely. Screenshot saved. Very good. One round where Splashky doesn't kill everybody. I would say that's a screenshot-worthy moment.
Yeah, upload that one. I'll give it a like on the activity feed.
Now, Boot, I mean, they've lost a man advantage. They're sort of congregating around Hut in this annex position, which would probably indicate a bit of a split onto the upper bomb site. Divide's going to get an opening onto upper. Second one as well. They've left the bomb in T-spawn, though, so they won't be getting a bomb plan anytime soon.
At least they're making some inroads. MyRolls is going to push his way into lobby, and this may be a spanner in the works for Boot Dreamscape. I don't know that they'll expect a player this close, and indeed they do not. The bomb, and Fox has pushed out a squeaky door. It's 2v1. For Alpha Red, though, the situation is a little better than it could have been. Boot Dreamscape do still have plenty of time. They'll make their way into the B site. Or will they?
Ooh. Have they played themselves? Well, I mean, Fox is in the vent now. He hasn't heard a thing. Oh, he's really committed down there, Boot. They've made the right call. Heading up towards upper, they're going to get that bomb plant down. It's going to be pretty difficult for Fox to come in on this retake, especially because I mean, either the overlay's bugged or he just doesn't have a kit. And if he doesn't have a kit, then I would be holding on to all that utils. I wouldn't want to be going for this one.
Well, he's thinking about it.
You got so much money. You've got so much to live for. Think of all the grenades.
I thought he was going to walk off into CT there, but he's walked straight into Benkai, who all of a sudden in this second half now, or maybe even in the last couple of rounds, have really been able to, or has really been able to start having more of an impact.
All right, so Alpha Red, they haven't had their money completely reset because of the new changes. So they're on single eco territory. They've still got some loss bonus sort of built up. Now is the time where they just take that singular eco and they buy some small pistols or like maybe a flashbang, and they call it. They let Boot have their 12th round. We don't want to be overspending too much. We need our utility. So I'd like to see them do that. You have to say though, Boot, with a fairly simplistic approach on this T side, have been fairly dominant. Individually, they're making some really good fundamental decisions. They're finding some good times to push certain parts of the map. And they're either opening up with the picks or they're sort of just creating, with much better spacing that I have to say than Alpha Red had in that first half, good situations by trading kills back and forth and just getting their way onto the bomb sites. Yeah,
I mean, it's starting to look like Boot Dreamscape is getting the edge, but you always sort of say that, and with a grain of salt, particularly on the T side of Nuke. It's a fickle game, really. Alpha Red don't have any money in this round, though, so they've stacked the B bomb site. For Boot, slow is the game.
They don't need to take any unnecessary risks. They're pretty aware of the state that Alpha Red's money is in. I like this sort of stack towards lower. Going to be pressure towards Warehouse and Secret from Boot. They don't really have any information towards that ramp or lobby area, which is a pretty common place you will see a push happen. So we might see a pretty big clash here. This stack might be paying off here for Alpha Red. I don't want to see any of these CTs peaking a little bit too early. I want to see you let those Ts in nice and close and then peak up together.
Sure.
Where's Benkai at is my real question. Because he's walking around getting a lot of info, which might completely change what Boot's about to do in this round. This is the man of the people right here.
Well, he needs to do it quite quickly, doesn't he? Because 35 seconds, it's enough time, of course, to rotate into that A bomb site, and it looks like that is the call that's been made. So that's really nice from Boot Dreamscape.
Fantastic job for Benkai to just double, triple check. We don't want to be walking into a stack here, okay? This would be a bad round for it.
That's like me clutching up the Apex Legends game when you and my other teammate die, and I have to creep around and figure out how to get the res. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's less firepower oriented, but it's the smarts. You know? I've got the mind games.
You've got the mind games. That helps you place the zip lines correctly.
That's what Benkai's got as well.
Yep. And the good looks, right?
Exactly.
And the modesty on top of all of that.
Absolutely. And massive muscles as well.
I've got an 8-pack.
Yeah.
All right. So all of the CTs, I mean, there's not much that they can do. They're kind of just going to chill down in this lowers area. They're going to check out these cool tanks. What do you reckon they're full of?
Anything.
What kind of a plant
is
this?
Well, it's a nuclear plant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's nuke, right? So it could be like radiation fluid.
Yep.
Yep.
Definitely could be. Could be water. Who knows?
Could be water.
I
Those
don't
look
know
like
how
water
that
tanks
functions.
to me, to be honest. I think if you had radiation, something like hazardous material, it would have like yellow and big or scary signs and stuff.
Maybe. Maybe it's just the office water cooler. We'll never know. Again, it's going to be the half buy for Alpha Red. They actually were forced to double eco in that situation. Hadn't built up a huge amount of loss bonus, maybe like 1 or 2. Not fully reset though, but in this situation, you know, you probably have just as much of a chance with the pistol armor and a couple of smokes than you do with the M4 and armor and a couple of smokes, and you'd rather be into the next round not heading towards the 3k mark, but instead have like 5k, 5.5k where you can buy up the AWP, you can buy up, you know, all of your incendiaries, your favorite grenades, couple extra snacks. As for Boot though, speaking, you know, in the first half of some troubles they had anti-ecoing, in this half, their money's been out of control. They've been keeping it pretty good. Closing it out pretty cleanly.
It's always been important. Very slow and steady T-side, really, from Boot Dreamscape, hasn't it been? Especially against the pistols.
Yeah, but very different than what Alpha Red did. Alpha Red very, very reliant on the sort of overall strategic team approach in terms of, you know, how they're using their utility in particular. Whereas Boot, it's kind of just a bunch of the lads walking around the map together. You know, we'll use a few pieces of utility here and there if we have to, but I'm really backing my boy Splash Key or Defy or whoever's got that rifle in his hands to just be fundamentally making the right calls and clearing out the areas very well with someone very close to trade him.
Doesn't that really need to be what Boot Dreamscape does, particularly on a game like this on Nuke.
Keep it simple.
Not their map choice. Yeah, keep it simple. They're a new roster. Just try and aim, guard the map all the way to the victory. I mean, they know, I mean, in theory, I would suppose, in their own minds, they would assume that they are the better players, individually speaking, right?
Yeah,
and I think it's obvious to us as well that, mechanically speaking, Boot Dreamscape do have really sharp aimers.
Yep.
So it seems like a no-brainer, really, to play it out like this.
I mean, it's working out well for them. They've got themselves that 13-10 lead, although they haven't really come up against a whole lot of opposition, I have to say, thus far. It seems like they're pretty consistently on these gun routes getting these first picks. They're swatting away the anti-ecos fairly easily. I'd say this is going to be the first real test that Alpha Red's going to be able to give them.
Yeah, well, fortunes can change very quickly as well in Counter.
For sure.
Like, we've seen time and time again where we say, oh, this game is over, X or Y team is going to win, and then it just turns on its head.
My question is, why has STK got himself a FAMAS in a gun round where he's got 1,500 in the bank?
Maybe he just likes the gun.
No, that's just, that's not something you do.
Sometimes I like to run the triple take. I know you don't like it. You just have to understand, some people have different opinions to you.
I mean, I don't know what to... That's like literally saying, would you like a snake or would you like a one gum? And then he takes the one gum. I prefer the one gum. It's more economical.
Myrals does a lot of damage there, but has to get out. He isn't being chased too quickly. So Buddha happy with control of ramp room, which they have.
No, he's done a good job. He's put a lot of damage onto some of these Ts. He's gained info and he's stayed alive while expending his utility. So the real question being now at this point, that he's got that damage off and he's got the information, are you going to make the correct rotations as Alpha Red? Because that's the things that they need to be doing. And they have some pretty aggressive positions on this upper sort of lobby area. They haven't over-rotated to lower, which is really good to see. Oh, this is a beautiful timing. Oh, they're going back towards radio.
What is Boot doing? That is the real question.
Okay, they're going back towards radio, towards lower, but this is pretty obvious, especially when Myrals starts to hear these footsteps. It's going to be a pretty easy pick, I would imagine, on Splashkey, but he's not overextending. There he goes. Oh, bomb goes down. These CTs are rotating through window.
Well, the CTs are the ones finding the frags as well. Alex has to charge his way down the ramp, but he'll probably be the one that needs to get the bomb, but he's down now as well, and that'll be the round over. That
is just like a perfect example of like not being able to fake upper and then run radio to lower. Lads, your path towards the lower bomb site is twice as long as the CTs. Like all they do is run down a ladder and they're already in lower. They're already through vent. Like you saw Boot, they had like 20-25 seconds it took them to go through ramps and then through Megaton where Myrals was already posted up. The rest of the lads on Alpha Red, you just run down the vent and you're already in position. You saw like, I think it was Foxes or STK who was able to get into window before Boot was able to make any real progress on lower.
Splashy lurked his way out onto the A side. He's actually behind the vent. I think Alpha Red know where he is. The grenade heading in there. STK having a look.
He's been so aggressive outside of this door time and time again. I think they're pretty aware that this is a possibility.
Yeah, STK certainly looking for him and will grab the kill as well. Better start in the round here for Alpha Red again.
And it's pretty interesting that that's the kind of approach Splashkey's taking. Like, he's their primary AWPer. They've had money the entire time. He hasn't touched the AWP. He's been aggressive outside that door and hut area time and time again. He's not looking for picks with the AWP on outside like a normal sort of AWP player would be doing.
Well, that was what we theorized as to how much of an impact he's going to have on this T side as opposed to CT, where he was just going absolutely nuts.
Yep.
Maybe he just doesn't feel like he wants to take the AWP here on T.
Benkai's in a pretty excellent position here.
I think it's Benkai that's really been opening up a lot of the doors for Boot Dreamscape on this T side.
Alex is just sort of poking and prodding towards his ramp room. I want to see where Fox is actually making his way onto lower into a decent position. They pushed and got lobby control Alpha Red. That's a huge amount of information. They're aware that Benkai's in heaven. This is all going to be on Fox to be able to... He's got a multi-frag. If he doesn't multi-frag, they give up too much control and it's going to be the end of the round. The CT's going to start rotating in now.
Are they going to check this angle, though? It doesn't look like Bulbasaur will, so that'll be the bomb dropped. 8 seconds.
Oh, the molly.
To survive, and if he will...
Alex is burning.
What is going on in this round for Boot Dreamscape? Oh, dearie me. As I said, like, I don't think that that's a check... God. A spot that you check so easily, particularly with that much time left.
That volley just seals it. Oh, Fox is just chilling in the crate. He had to do that. Like, if you look at the positions of where the other Alpha Red players were, none of them were even in position to be able to rotate. They're all still chilling in upper because Benkai's prodded them from heaven. Like, if you see a T in heaven, you go, oh my god, I'm about to get backstabbed. Like, I have no idea how many of the Ts could be in heaven. Are they going to split us through Squeaky and Hut as well as going through heaven? And that's another, you know, sort of situation where Boot, it seems like they're trying to get a little bit too tricky with how they're sort of maneuvering around in these later rounds. Like, they're really trying to double pump everywhere. Like, they're trying to hit, we apply pressure upper, now we're going to go towards lower. But they're going through ramp every time, which has such a long rotation route, gives so much time for these CTs to get into good positions and rotate around as well. I really would have liked to see if Boot would just have Benkai push through heaven with everybody else in radio and lobby and just keep it simple and head through Hut and Squeaky rather than rotating around the entire map and going towards lower.
Well, Boot have had a tactical pause just there, so maybe they've ascertained what they need to do if they're going to go on the same train of thought as you, bring it back to the basics. But Alpha Red in the last couple of rounds certainly have made it look a little bit scarier for Boot. They still have that 1 round advantage. It's not much to really speak of anymore, though, for Boot Dreamscape. Like, it's kind of crunch time now, I think. Make or break for Boot here on Nuke. Olivia should surely spot one out. Misses the shot, though. That gives Bulbasaur the opportunity to run out in the open.
I don't know about that one. Unfortunate. There's the ban advantage for Alpha Red, which is something that they haven't had a lot of thus far on Nuke, I feel like. Feels like Boot's been excellent opening up these rounds, so this may not be good signs here for Boot. I don't know what they're really going to do with this round at this point. I mean, they've been punished for going for that sort of slow approach where they're not really using too much utility going over towards outside by losing that first pick. Oh, they're just going to sort of walk out Hut and hope for the best. I don't think that's going to work too well.
Not against SDK, not with an AUG. Alex trades one back. KNTZ. So what?
Wow.
How has that happened? Billy, I'm going to need a breakdown after this, but to be honest, that seemed too crazy to exist. Not going to matter too much. Alpha Red will get the retake.
That's just a bit of timing. Like, so what happened really there is SDK's in heaven, and you saw that him kill that guy in Hut. On his screen, and in terms of his comms, he's killed one in Hut. He thinks that's the first guy out. There's 2 Ts in front of that, and that's what really creates that situation where they're able to slip out without the Hut player really being aware. Like, for us as a spectator, we can see exactly how many people are there, exactly what time they're sort of pushing out. On SDK's screen and on the Alpha Red comms, he's like, oh, I killed one Hut. And then, you know, at that point, you think that's the entry player, when in reality, that's the 3rd player in line, and the rest of the boys are out onto the bomb site. Regardless, though, it's really the advantages, the man advantages that Alpha Red got themselves in that round that are able to make it so easy to come back into. Once they've lost that extra player on outside, the retake was much easier.
Yeah, never really gave Boot any time to reset themselves. Once that post-plant situation arose, it was really all Alpha Reds for the taking.
And Boot, they've had money this entire T side. They haven't had to take a save. Like, the entire time, they've just had stacks and stacks of cash. They've finally run out of cash.
But now they're finally starting to get that losers round bonus building up as well.
True. And Alpha Red as well, like, they're starting to get a little bit of cash on the boards. It's just been so many gun rounds consecutively. It's been good to see. Benkai is trying to help Alex get in a good position, probably close up to Annex. As well as Benkai's dropped on top of the Annex as well. Is this going to be an uppers hit pretty quickly here from Boot? Looks like it.
Yeah, they certainly seem to be going quickly. Benkai leading the charge this time, spots the player up in heaven. But their kills are all going to Alpha Red, Bulbasaur and Splashy to try and salvage the situation. It seems as though Boot Dreamscape have just lost the momentum. As I said, it can change so quickly in a game like Counter-Strike, and now Alpha Red are the ones that you expect to end up winning this map. Bomb's going to be planted, and if Splashy doesn't go absolutely bananas with this AWP, I'm not seeing it happen.
Alpha Red, they really don't want to be rushing this retake. Don't give the Ts any pick. Just come in together with all 4 of your players. Go 2 from Megaton, 2 from Ghetto, but there, Splashky's able to get himself the first pick. This is not good.
If Bulbasaur finds one or Splashky another, now it starts to suddenly look doable. Bulbasaur knows where that AWP is. He spins around, gets the player on the site, and now in the close range fight with the AK. How does Boot Dream win? I just cannot fathom how Boot Dreamscape wins that round.
It's just, again, it's just a fundamentally bad position to be retaking through. Like, they had no vent pressure whatsoever. Splashke's just able to run around and take different angles. That's exactly what he's good at in terms of being, you know, such a dynamic AWPer and such a mobile player as well. And Bulbasaur, how can you even be allowed to just spin around 180 degrees and kill one of the CTs before he kills you? Like, just
and then not get traded as well.
Not be allowed to happen ever.
Well, it happened, and now Boot Dreamscape have the numbers advantage once again on the scoreboard, 14-13. Have to see what the money is looking like, but for Alpha Red, I think they should be able to get a buy through here.
If I had a little analyst segment for this game, I'd get them to talk about who had the worst lower bomb site retake, because they were both pretty bad.
Yeah, well, we'll get that sorted for the next broadcast, Philly.
Beautiful.
Couple of Mag 7s here for Alpha Red, couple of UMPs, and the AWP, which is a glass cannon for my rolls. Really seems as though Alpha Red have been throwing that AWP around a bit.
That's just his name. I thought you were saying, like, for my money, for my rolls.
Oh.
It's just a glass cannon for my rolls.
Oh,
no, Olivia. He's gone there time and time again, and even the first time, how ready were Boot for him when he was chilling in that position? Like, they know that he's going to be there somehow. They've done a bit of homework. They've done a bit of prac. They're aware for some reason that he's going to be chilling in that position, and he's been punished for it twice now. Now, disadvantage in terms of weaponry, disadvantage in terms of personnel. I don't know how much Alpha Red have in terms of being able to win this round. I don't think it's going to be a possibility.
Where does that leave the money for the next round as well?
Cool.
Like, they haven't built up the losers round bonus enough to
No, they haven't.
get a good buy next round. So now it really looks like it should be Boot Dreamscape to win the round.
Win the
Alex
game.
in the game. The map, really. Not the game just yet. But still, you could make the argument that if we get to Dust 2 with Boot having a map advantage, they should win from there. We'll see, though. Fox is covered off very nicely from Benkai.
Where was he killed from?
I don't know. I think through Squeaky. Who knows? Doesn't really matter at the end of the day. My rolls with that AWP.
Save your AWP.
Yeah, save it, but how much help is it going to be in the next round?
No, he wasn't really doing his best Splashkey impression, was he?
No. It does not seem like Boot Dreamscape want to let him have that either. He
shot
Alex.
the guy in lobby.
Yeah.
Through the wall.
Through the wall.
Beautiful.
Well, what can you do, though, really? One round away now for Boot Dreamscape. Look at the money for Alpha Red.
Oh, it's cooked.
You just
no.
put this one in the books, I think, for Boot Dreamscape. Although, knowing Boot Dreamscape, I'm sure they'll do their best to lose the round.
We'll see. At least they're doing the best at something, Jordan.
Yep.
Alright. Pretty slow round for Boot. They don't want to be throwing this one away, except for your boy Benkai. He's doing his same thing. He's literally walking through outside. He's going, how can they shoot me if they only have pistols and shotguns?
Well, that's right. And Alex has already gotten rid of my rolls, so it's going to go from bad to worse. Benkai actually deciding not to shoot the player there in Annex. Did you see that? Like, did I read that incorrectly? Was it
No, that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah.
He's
I thought it might have been an X-ray or something that was through the wall, but yeah, he decided not to shoot him, and now he's going to go all the way up to heaven.
It's big braining it.
200 IQ plays. Here we go.
Big brain Benkai, that's what they call him.
There's going to be one. He'll have a peek onto the side as well. And, well, may well get two. A lot of information at the very least. Opens the door for Boot Dreamscape again for Benkai. Nicely done. And the trades do come through for Boot Dreamscape. So this looks like it's going to be 16-13. Alpha Red relying on Olivia with the Nova. And but a dream. And it's not going to be a Dreamscape, I don't think, for Alpha Red. Boot Dreamscape will eventually finish things off. 16-13 there on Nuke. I don't want to say it was a confident performance, though, just yet from Boot Dreamscape. Like, there was definitely some little niggling issues that they can look at there. But nonetheless, you get over your opponent's map choice well enough. We move on to Dust 2, which now that we've seen the firepower and that kind of thing out from Boot Dreamscape, certainly seems like a more favourable option for them.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. Dust 2, I don't know how much Alpha Red have really played it, so I don't know if they're going to have much of a chance. I'd say even less of a chance than Boot might have had on a map like Nuke, which at least they've played a little bit historically. I don't know how much I've seen Alpha Red actually even attempt Dust 2. I've seen plenty of them on your Nukes and Mirage and a bit of Cash and stuff like that. So I don't know how their chances are really looking moving forward in the series, having lost that Nuke pick towards Boot. It could have really gone either way, though. Like, there was some fundamental rounds, especially on this lower bomb site, that really should have gone the way of either team, and then...
They didn't.
It didn't, and, I mean, Splashkey really got them many of those rounds on the CT side in particular, so... I don't really know how to feel about this Boot performance, especially moving into not only the next map, but also going up against a team like Lucid, who's looking pretty on point.
Yeah, most definitely. I do think that this Boot Dreamscape team is probably not looking good enough to beat Lucid. That is still a question that we have to ask, obviously, when we do get to the final qualifying match. But for Boot Dreamscape, in my mind, they're definitely looking good enough to beat Alpha Red, particularly when we say we're heading over onto Dust 2. You know, you've got Splashy going pretty crazy with the AWP. Devi, if they want to have the secondary AWP, had at least an opportunity to do something there in Nuke as well, so he seems to be doing all right for himself. And just in general, like the firepower and the fragging power and the capabilities in that respect seem to be a lot better for Boot Dreamscape than they do for Alpha Red, and, you know, kind of goes hand in hand a little bit with Dust 2.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, more of a simplistic map from time to time, but yeah, I guess we'll see how it sort of pans out, whether Alpha Red have any kind of strategies or preparation on a map like Dust 2 heading into the next one.
Well, those are the questions we are going to answer exactly heading into the next one. Time for us to take a break, guys. Don't go anywhere. Map 2 coming up here. It's going to be Dust 2. We'll be back in a sec.